Namal Rajapaksa, thank you very much for speaking to NDTV. You are speaking to me now from an undisclosed location. First, why did you and your family flee? We saw those pictures of you all leaving on a chopper. Why do you think it's reached a situation where you don't feel safe in your own country?
Well, first of all, I must say that we didn't flee the country or we didn't go out of the country, but just the security forces believe that in order to calm things down and also bring law and order, it's much more safer for my father, the former Prime Minister, to be in a safe location, and especially with the situation that we anyway had after sitting the NDTV terrorism, which was a long-standing involved in Lanka. And myself, I'm not in the same location, I'm in Colombia. And I'll be also involved in that and the meeting that has been held. So it's nothing that we have been hiding from anything, but security comes first, especially for the Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister. And we believe, these challenges we all facing for the country we live in.
No, absolutely. Security comes first, and of course for your family members and people who are not in politics, and everybody actually, security does come first. But the point is, why do you think it came to this situation? Because the protests by people had been peaceful for the last 1 month, and now they're saying that it was actually pro-Rajapaksa supporters who came and violently beat up peaceful protesters, and that's why the situation escalated to where you and your father feel there is a threat to your lives.
Well, see, that's the wrong interpretation. If you look at how the entire protest started, was attacking President Rajapaksa's residence and being very violent and also destroying and burning, setting up fire for residences and also burning vehicles at President Rajapaksa's residence. And then it went up to extended to few other members and the ministers in the cabinet, including the former Petroleum Minister, Honorable Daman Roshan Ranasinghe, Member of Parliament from Polonnaruwa, and many others. But yes, we do agree the peaceful protest is accepted, it has to be. But I think from all political parties, violence is not the solution. And see, if you look at what happened on the 9th, the provocation from both sides, but the provocation is not only from one side. So we are just law and order in the country, there's justice system in the country. So I think police have to bring justice and bring back normalcy, implement law and order, and use the court procedure. No one can take the law into their hand. What was the result? Many lives were killed. Member of Parliament was killed and then shot, and he was dragged on the floor. There was a video circulating, and buses were burned, vehicles were burned, houses were burned down, and also at the same time you see there were people who had no connection with politics at all, prominent businessmen. Their houses were burned down as well.
No, and
so
absolutely.
What happens when peaceful protests are being taken over by certain political interested groups, parties with political interest.
But in fact, I think that every political party has said that there must be an end to this violence. We're seeing visuals of those MPs' houses being burnt, and of course the death of the killing of that MP as well, very tragic. But just to ask Namal Rajapaksa, did you and your family miscalculate the anger that had come? Because even at the time when the elections happened, your father's Prime Minister, your uncle is a president, you were a minister, many other Rajapaksas were ministers in the cabinet. How could one family take over the democracy of Sri Lanka in a sense? Did you underestimate the public anger against this?
No, not at all, because we all believe in democratic process. See, our family has been in politics for the last 50 years, and my father's political career is 55 years. And we have lost elections, we have been at home, and we have won elections. But if you name anyone, other than the former finance minister, all of us came into parliament through people's vote. But at the same time, it was the opposition campaign that was targeting one family, rather than targeting the government. We see that happening in India, we see that happening in many other countries. So the government is not run by one family, and our SSPP, our political party, is not controlled by one individual or one family. The party is better, it's a party with a mechanism. But yes, I do agree the perception that has been created towards SSPP and our government is very different, especially by the opposition. That has been the slogan right throughout, not today. That has been the slogan ever since war was ended in 2009. And these entire allegations that were brought against us, whether it's about corruption, they investigated in 2015, and still some of the cases are going on, and they investigated globally, whether we have accounts globally, but they came to the conclusion there is nothing like that. All those are false.
But Mr. Raj,
so many years.
Mr. Rajapaksa, but today as we speak, our correspondent in Sri Lanka tells us of how that there are people in Sri Lanka who can only have one meal a day. There's no cooking gas. There are lines for fuel. Do you accept responsibility? You say it's a democratic process, but do you, your father and your government accept responsibility for the absolutely terrible situation the people of Sri Lanka are in today?
See, the terrible situation, yes, we do agree there's a bad economic crisis going on in Sri Lanka, but this is not something happened overnight within last 6 months or 3 months, It was there for many years, especially with COVID-19 pandemic, as you know. Our economy was badly hit, and the President and the government had a clear vision in line with WHO and the rest of the world that the vaccination is the only way forward for us to reopen the country. And as a result, we have lost close to $5 billion in foreign reserves from tourism, and our exports have dropped because we had closed down factories for many months. So it came from there. And of course there was certain miscalculation when it comes to decision-making process. But because I personally believe all those decisions were taken with good intention, but unfortunately they were not being able to change with the new normal governing post-pandemic or after COVID-19.
In fact, one of these decisions, Mr. Rajapaksa, you said they were taken with the best intentions, but international observers have pointed to the fact that especially the reliance on China coming in, and your father, Mahinda Rajapaksa, was often seen as getting extremely close to China, and it was the whole Chinese investment model which has landed Sri Lanka where it is. In fact, when India has now come forward with much aid, do you regret what Sri Lanka's growing reliance on Chinese investment and loans had become?
No, I think Sri Lanka has to be non-aligned right throughout, and we shouldn't be a victim of geopolitics. We have to work with all the countries that are willing to help us, and especially, of course, China has been a great investor in Sri Lanka and has done a lot of projects. Same with India. India has been with us, with Sri Lankans right throughout, especially during this pandemic time and post-pandemic. India was the first to send us vaccination, and then even now the credit line. So, Sri Lanka has to maintain an unaligned foreign policy and work towards the betterment of the Sri Lankans rather than getting in between the geopolitical struggle.
Mr. Rajapaksa, finally, as I said, you're speaking to me from an undisclosed location. Do you fear today for your safety, for your family's safety, your father's safety? A Sri Lanka court has today said that Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa and none of you can actually leave Sri Lanka. What would you say to the people of Sri Lanka who are watching? Are you fearful for your life?
No, I think it's not only about my life. I think all Sri Lankans are fearing for their life at the moment because there is no law and order. You go into houses, you loot it, you steal stuff, you burn down houses for no reason. It's not only us. I mean, if you talk to most of the Sri Lankans, are feeling it. And on top of that, we are going through one of the worst economic crises in Sri Lankan history. Just imagine, you go through a worst economic crisis and your country is under a curfew and mobs are taking place with politically motivated organizations. And if you look at these mobs, I'm telling you with a lot of responsibility for my statement. There are a lot of political party representatives leading these mobs. We have pictures, there are CCTV footage, there are evidence that certain political party leaders are given leadership for these mob attacks. What is the end result for this? End result is destruction in Sri Lanka, which will drop tourist arrival, which will cut down the manufacturing in Sri Lanka and export. That will stop giving us or reduce giving us foreign revenue. So this fearing for life for one individual or a leadership is not the answer, it's not the question, it's about the entire country. So I believe this is the right time. The President has to take a decision. He has already appointed the Prime Minister, so now the new government has to go in because Sri Lanka has been going through for the last 48 hours without a government. Because on a country with the worst crisis, economic crisis in the history,
Yes.
without a government, right? So I think it's not about one individual or our family, our life. It's about entire Sri Lanka. We need to step up. We personally have
absolutely,
gone to LTT.
And at a time when
terrorism report, LTT terrorism, without even looking after, without even wondering twice about our security. But we are ready to face this. But as a country, we need to come up and move forward.
Mr. Rajapaksa, thank you very much for speaking to me and taking all questions. We see a new Prime Minister sworn in today. We hope that Sri Lanka will be able to come out of this crisis. Thank you very much.